Well, have you ever wondered about the impact the U.S. sanctions are having on the Russian economy? It's been over a year since they were imposed, and the Russian ruble stands at 50 to every $1 US. A news article published in the Moscow Times reveals that nearly 20% of Russians can only afford the bare necessities due to the double-digit inflation. The UK's Telegraph pointed out that it seems like the Russian attitude, they would rather starve than yield to Western policies, and it looks like they're doing just that. Well, their economy, clearly it's eroding, and their attitude prior to this news article coming out, this was in Russia, by the way. This wasn't an English paper that printed this. They were laughing, saying the sanctions had no effect on us, we're not hurting at all. And here we see that they're hurting clearly.
Well, they don't want to let everyone know the pain that they're in because they're stubborn. And this kind of highlights, who's really affected when these sanctions happen. From a moral standpoint, it's easy to say sanctions are wrong. Look at the people can't get the bare necessities from the supermarket when they go. We see this in Russia. We see it in Venezuela. We see it all over the place where U.S. puts sanctions on these countries that are already pretty poor. The thing is, though, we have to understand something. Russia is a big country. They have a lot of influence in the world. They're a strong country. They don't want to back down to anyone. The same way that U.S. doesn't want to be told what to do, would never, ever back down to anybody. They constantly justify what they do, and they say, well, the U.S. does it here in a different way. We go into Crimea, we take it, we annex Crimea. Well, they did the same thing to Serbia with Kosovo. NATO just went in, they took it from them. They always have a reason how they can justify what they did. They're not going to admit that they're wrong, which is why sanctions are not going to help anyone. They won't even admit that the sanctions are crippling the economy when we know they clearly are. So this isn't going to help anything. This is not going to go anywhere. What needs to happen is we need to sit down again and get back to talks.
I unfortunately don't see that happening. Putin is seen as a major figure, almost like a god in Russia. That was the impression that I got. It's not his fault, of course.
He fights bears.
It's the big bad West. It's our fault, but it's something else. There's more than just the ruble falling that's going on here.
Okay.
Depressed wages. Wages have fallen in Russia 9.3%. Consumer spending is down 8.7%. Not a lot of work going around. A lot of factors to this, but we're definitely seeing the sanctions are impacting their economy. There's no question, along with other factors.
Not just their economy. A lot of the former Soviet countries, the stands, for example, Kazakhstan is being hurt by this too. A lot of countries that weren't even in the USSR and Eastern Europe are also being affected by this. Not every country can afford to cut off their ties with Russia. A lot of countries rely not just to sell, but to buy things from Russia. So we're affecting a lot of economies in the world, not just Russia. So we have to keep that in mind here, that there's a lot at stake, a lot more than we think.
A lot more at stake. That's for sure. Well, we'd love to know what you think. Please be sure and log on and post your comments and subscribe to the Lip TV.